it's a lesson that I do think that everyone learns at some point in their life. I just don't know when I would have learned it had I not had a cancer diagnosis. So much of swimming, so much of my entire life really has been prospective. It has been preparing for what's coming in the future. And then this was really a huge dose of being retrospective. Hey, did I live my life the way I wanted to live it?
Welcome to Champions Mojo Weekly Podcast, where your hosts Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker share with you what it takes to be a champion. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds Masters World and National swimming records. And Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and was the overall women's winner of the world's toughest bike race, Race Across America. They'll be sharing their personal stories and wisdom, along with interviewing other champions to give you the tools you need for becoming a true champion in your own life. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I'm co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Kelly.
Maria, as you know, now is the time we introduce our guest. And even though we are going to give him a nice introduction, he really is one of the swimmers, the few swimmers that just doesn't need an introduction. That's right. Today we are going to be talking with Nathan Adrian, whose name goes right alongside of Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, and Natalie Coughlin as some of the U.S.'s greatest Olympians. But for our friends listening that for some reason don't know Nathan Adrian, I will tell you that Nathan is a multiple-time Olympic champion, that he is in the most competitive events. So Nathan is a sprint freestyler. His heart-stopping Olympic victory in the 100-meter freestyle in 2012 by 1/100th of a second had my husband and I jump off the couch and scream and hug each other, because you were the first American to win that since 1988, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy. So that was amazing. And it's still one of the most memorable races in Olympic history. Then in 2016, Nathan was on the podium again twice individually for the 50 and 100 free. In total, Nathan has 5 Olympic gold medals, 27 gold medals in international competition. And I've heard many refer to Nathan as the sprinting GOAT, which is the greatest of all time, which I definitely agree with. But Maria, before we let Nathan go crazy here and talk with us, give us a little bit more important facts on Nathan that our listeners are going to love.
Sure, Kelly. Nathan's one of our top professional swimmers. He's really making a living at it. He swims for the LA Current Pro Team, and his main sponsor is Speedo. Collegiately, Nathan was a multiple-time NCAA champion for Cal Berkeley, and impressively was recently their winter commencement speaker in 2018. And as champions do, Nathan has recently battled back to the top of the health podium after getting a testicular cancer diagnosis, but catching it early and returning quickly to training and fast swimming. What an honor and pleasure we're all in for today to be able to chat with Nathan. So without further delay, let's bring him in. Nathan, welcome to Champions Mojo.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So Nathan, we're starting off a new year and a new decade. And just want to start off by what thoughts come up for you when we say 2020?
My gosh. I mean, it is funny. I guess I didn't think about it being like the new decade until I saw the like social media posts about like, oh my gosh, that's right. Like the 2010s are now over. And then 2020, I think for all of us that are, currently in I call it the quad cycle, because, our lives revolve around this 4-year cycle. 2020 was just kind of like each Olympics is kind of its own endpoint. So for me, 2020 basically means Tokyo Olympics. And then after that, I don't know.
You're obviously excited about the 2020 Olympics, and but what else is exciting to you about the future?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of work recently. With an old training buddy of mine who I swam with at Cal, we purchased a swim school up in San Rafael in Marin County. So we're kind of taking that, trying to take what they've already done and grow it a little bit, and try to, I've been involved with the USA Swimming Foundation for my entire professional career now, and I'm trying to spread the importance of swim lessons. And this is just kind of taking that a step further to helping to provide those lessons for the community. And it's been a really, really great, really rewarding experience.
That's great.
I always knew that after swimming was done, I wasn't just, walking away from the pool, leaving my cap and goggles and dropping them forever in some sort of dramatic fashion. And this way I get to kind of keep one foot in, one foot out and try to, take some of the lessons that I learned and give that as a gift to younger kids. And hopefully, they take what I learned and take it way, way, way further than I've even taken it. Because that's what I feel like the older generation of swimmers had done to me. As I was going through as a young national teamer on like 2008, 2009, watching Natalie, watching Jason, watching Dara and Michael, those guys were just so incredible and an amazing just library of knowledge to watch and try to emulate and take, what I thought I could, learn from them and make it my own.
So how involved do you think you'll be in that?
We've been pretty involved so far in a good way. Just because as with any, and it's not necessarily a startup, it's been running for 60 years, but, Will and I kind of want to take it and make it our own and grow it. As with any business, you kind of wear a lot of different hats. One day I'm trying to pretend to understand, 8 different Excel spreadsheets. Unfortunately, I have friends, who are very gifted financial, people that help me out to understand those things, or putting on my insurance broker hat and trying to figure out, the best way about insurance, and then, pretending to, be a general contractor and trying to find people to fix this, that, or the other. It's all really fun, exciting stuff, and I'm very grateful, for swimming and swimming through college, because those two things taught me kind of how to approach problems and how to tackle them. So I can take that mentality into, our little small business.
Beautiful. Now, will you be actually blowing bubbles in the pool ever?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't, a little bit here and there, and doing probably a little bit of, private lessons when the time comes, as my time in the pool training for the Olympics, kind of winds down. And my time in the pool, helping to teach, takes a little bit more of a spotlight. I'll be doing a little bit of that, definitely.
Cool.
Sounds like you've had these new skills you're learning has been sort of a different kind of challenge for you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, and I watch it a little bit in those who are some of the younger athletes, this cycle of swimming in college and being really, really excited to just be done with schoolwork and just focus on swimming. And it works out really, really well for almost everyone, because being able to just focus on swimming is great. Focus on recovery, focus on nutrition, focus on, getting the right amount of sleep. And then, as with all of us, I think the kind of innate human nature, like wanting to continue to grow in some way, shape, or form. It's kind of like Inception. It's like this little like seed in the back of our heads. And I've spoken with a lot of national teamers who are like, man, I don't know what that is for me. And I'm like, hey, like, enjoy this and it'll pop up, because I didn't necessarily know that it was going to be, purchasing and running a swim school. And I find that, as much as I dream about, success at the Olympics, I also dream about, fun, new ideas for, teaching kids how to swim. So that's what's really cool about this for me, is that it's a way to kind of, grow on a personal level, and then also just have something else to engage in. Because as a lot of us, I think, would tell you too, that, having only swimming and swimming be your only thing that you're doing can be tough, because there are going to be times that no matter how hard you try, how perfect your nutrition is, how many massages you get a week, there might be a hiccup. You might hit a speed bump. You might, not be dropping the times in practice that you want to. Maybe you're sick, or maybe an injury happens. I don't know what it may be, but I'll tell you this, if you swim for long enough, it'll happen. And it's really important to have something else going in your life to lean on for that time. That little bit of a lull and still maintain, going to practice and doing your weights and all that good stuff. And the swimming portion will pick up. You just got to give it a little bit of time.
So we went into that answer there as an obstacle, and we don't want to talk too in depth about your recovery from cancer because that story is out there and we like to be kind of fresh. So if cancer, coming back from this cancer diagnosis and recovery, and like we introduced you, you're already back swimming great, swimming fast. Was that the biggest obstacle so far in your life? And if not, what has been?
Yeah, no, so far, definitely. I had a couple pretty poignant moments in the last month or so, and I still have a few coming up because last year at this time, I would have to look at the calendar, but I'm pretty sure last year at this time I would be just getting back in the water a little bit, but I would be getting back in the water in preparation for my second surgery. So it was a tough time. I still had cancer in me. I still had further treatments to go till we were done. I was still digesting this entire thing. We were still kind of mulling over our options in terms of what treatment would look like based off of pathology. And that was, when people ask me what the most surprising thing about, the diagnosis or cancer is how much of a gray area there is when it comes to, your health and your health outcomes based off of, your treatments or I guess your prognosis too. I mean, it was really good for me as a numbers person to have taken a couple statistics courses in my public health education so I could digest it and understand that, hey, 80%, 90% means 80% or 90%. We don't know today. It could be perfect or it could come back. And I have to be able to understand and digest that and live with that because that's the only thing you really can do. And unfortunately, you can't control it all. We always want to control everything, but just it doesn't work that way.
What do you think your biggest lesson from this?
I think, the biggest lesson in this whole thing was just how finite our time on Earth is as humans. I don't know how existential you guys want to get about this.
We love it. We love existential.
Take us all the way down.
Yeah, but it's a lesson that I do think that everyone learns at some point in their life. I just don't know when I would have learned it had I not had a cancer diagnosis. And you end up looking like so much of swimming, so much of my entire life really has been prospective. It has been preparing for what's coming in the future. And then this was really a huge dose of being retrospective. Hey, did I live my life the way I wanted to live it? And so far, I am very happy and saying, yes, for the most part, I did. Certainly, there are some things that, I would go back and change, just be nicer to people on the street or whatever it may be. But, for the most part, I was at peace with that. And that was a good lesson to go through for me. And then I guess you take that retrospective look and then take it prospective. Like, hey, so, fortunately, knock on wood, things are looking good. I still have close surveillance for the next year so that it could come back. I mean, I think my next MRI is in 2 months. That could mean that in 2 months and a week, I could be going into chemo. But that being said, how are we going to make sure that, when the end of the time here does come, I do feel good about, how we spent our time on Earth. That's, I don't know, it gets a little bit crazy because my life has typically been study hard, get good grades, swim hard in practice, lift hard in the weight room, swim fast. It's this is a much bigger scale of thoughts and processes going through my head.
One of the gifts that cancer gives is it I've had experience with cancer in my family is that it helps you know what's important, right? So how did you answer that question when you got?
Absolutely. It is. I'd say the short of it is that I do know definitively now that at the end of my life, I don't care how many gold, silver, bronze medals I have at the Olympics. And I don't mean that in order to minimize what I'm trying to do and what our goals for this summer. Because in the much bigger piece, like that is ultimately important. That's what I focus on, but it's not because I want to have X number of gold medals or X number of American records or whatever it may be. I think this has always been fun for me. It's been a passion project, and why I love doing it is because it's this like fun optimization like puzzle. I'm one of those guys who, like, the second I sit in like the dentist office, I look for like the little fidget spinners or like little toys and stuff on the table, and that's kind of like that's how I approach swimming at this point, especially as I get a little bit older. It seems that the old what had worked for me in the past doesn't always necessarily work for me now. My body has adapted to those stimuli, so we got to figure out different ways to stimulate my body to try to adapt and get faster. So that is what is fun about this for me.
Nice.
So Nathan, you're obviously a huge inspiration to everybody, even before your cancer diagnosis. So you've been to 3 Olympics. You were the co-captain of the Olympic team. Up close and personal, you have watched some of our greatest performances in the last 3 Olympics. What storyline sticks out for you?
I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of different people. I think there's a little bit of an allusion to it earlier when I was talking about being able to watch some of the athletes that I got to watch in my younger days, and it wasn't necessarily one person that I saw and I want to emulate them. I want to be just like Natalie. I want to be just like Gary Hall Jr. It was more like I saw certain aspects of who they were because I knew I'm me. There's like certain parts of me that are probably gonna. It just take a lot of effort to change. I don't necessarily want to do that. So I take aspects of people or their stories, and I feel like I am inspired by that. And I mentioned Gary Hall Jr. I think his work with juvenile diabetes is awesome. I had went to college with an athlete on the crew team who unfortunately passed away from lung cancer, and through her battle, they went on to contend for an NCAA title in crew, and that was unbelievably inspiring to me. Just watching that happen, and her passion for her teammates and life, and it was I still look back on it and watch some of the videos, and it brings a tear to my eye. And gosh, I mean, there's so many people who unfortunately didn't catch their cancer and as early as I did, and have to deal with the impacts of that a lot more than I do, than just a couple surgeries. And to each and every one of those people, like, I almost feel like I owe it to them to try to see how far we can take this. Because, man, I mean, I just wish that if this wasn't a scourge on the human race, really. It's, and bringing this back, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I talk about it is that hopefully this open discourse encourages men, women, anyone to go to the doctor, feel something wrong, have a headache that just feels a little bit different than the normal headaches, or same with your back or whatever. Like, maybe you need to go to a doctor and check it out, because with cancer, like, the earlier you can catch anything, your prognosis is always better.
Absolutely.
The fact that you're now not just swimming for you or even for your country, you're swimming for people, like you said, who may be in worse shape than you from cancer or testicular cancer. That's gonna open a whole new level of performance, I would imagine, because when you're doing it for others, and especially such an important group, I think it's going to be fabulous. What are your routines or rituals that that you could share that have made you successful?
Yeah. So I guess for me, something that came up, I think it was maybe out of the 2012 Olympics and I think it was some book, and it was the British cycling team that had a great performance, and they were just talking about marginal improvements. And I think especially as you get done going through puberty, you're done. Basically, that's free money, right? Growing. Like that's just like you're gonna drop time. It's great. It feels awesome. I loved it. But as you're done with that, you got to really work on your marginal improvements, and you can find marginal improvements in almost every aspect of your life. I think the really obvious ones in swimming specifically would be like, make sure every turn in practice is good. What does that even mean? Like having a good, push off and streamline and good integrity in that, and doing the number of kicks that you're aiming to get. So start with 3, work up to 4 or 5, and then maybe 6. Or maybe making sure that you're not breathing off of, your breakouts. These are marginal improvements that you have to work on. You have to be very specific about them as you're working through them. And then hopefully after about 2-3 weeks or so, it kind of becomes patterned in your memory. And then you can work on something else, right? And then you can work on, making sure that you're washing your hands of your bubbles and your freestyle as you enter, or making sure you're having a nice low profile breath. Lots of little things. It's almost an infinite loop, because, as you go through every little thing that you want to improve on in swimming in the water, you're probably going to get a little bit lazy on something else. And then you can just kind of start the cycle over and try to make those improvements in that way. But you can make those improvements outside of the pool too, whether it be diet. I'm not, everybody starts with January 1st and, changing their diet completely. Oh yeah, wow, this is incredible. I'm going to be so good because of this. But then March rolls around and they kind of, revert back to what they're normally doing. But, if you kind of think about it, like marginally, like I'm going to have a perfect breakfast before every morning practice that I have. I'm making sure that, with my oatmeal, I have some blueberries, so I get some, antioxidants, and then, oatmeal, for me doesn't have enough protein in it to sustain me through a 2-hour workout. So I'm going to, have a half scoop of protein as well, and then you make that your breakfast instead of Fruit Loops, for instance. And then after, you're used to that as your breakfast, and that kind of becomes part of your routine, then you move on to lunch. Then you move on to second lunch, because we all know that we actually eat 5 meals a day. And then, without having to drone on forever, you can do these in your personal relationships too, which I think, overall makes you a better human. And, if we're looking at it from a physiological level, hopefully makes your stress levels go down, improves your recovery, and then you swim faster. So I definitely believe in those marginal improvements, and just maintaining a high level of integrity in everything that you do, instead of trying to make one drastic jump, from one year to the next. I'm going to sprint every yard or every meter of every practice. That's not really a sustainable change.
Yeah, that is awesome. Can you give a specific example of a marginal improvement in relationships? Some little marital counseling here for me and my husband.
Oh man. I think, for instance, thinking about yourself as a culmination of your community, because no one is really it would be great if all my success was just me, right? I worked so darn hard that, I beat all the odds and all this stuff. It's not even close, right? I had, my brother and sister who were both swimmers before me. So and, the hardest thing to do is doing something no one has ever done before. So for those two, they took swimming as far as they could take it. And I liken it to walking through a path in the jungle that hadn't been walked through before. They kind of cut this path through the jungle, and then brought me to, where I was, making maybe nationals, because that's nationals, Olympic trials, that's how far they took it. And then it was on me to take it a little bit further. But even with that, it wasn't just on me. It was on, my coaches. It was on my parents who were driving me to and from practice every day. And while one was driving me, the other one was, patiently waiting at home for a phone call saying, hey, we're 30 minutes away, start cooking. And then beyond that, it becomes, what we were doing at college and being grateful for my peers who were supportive of, me and understanding that I had, goals and aspirations outside of, just trying to swim fast in the collegiate environment and respecting that. It's a collective we, right? And that's kind of like how I think that everyone, should probably think about these things, because you just can't do it alone.
Right. So it's the humility that comes from knowing that you're standing on the shoulders of all the people who've helped you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if at a certain point, I think it still can help you to try to give back too, to be those shoulders.
Beautiful. You've obviously got an amazing mindset. I rewatched your 100 free win, and at the 85-meter mark, you were not going to win the gold medal, but somehow you put your head down in the last 10 meters, and I can only imagine what was going through your mind. So can you share what role you think mindset has played in your success, and kind of what your mindset is in general?
What my mindset is in general.
I mean, when you're trying to succeed, what mindset do you lock into, at the 80 meter mark of 100-meter free?
Execute. I think that's the only thing you can do. And it kind of brings me back a little bit to even talking about the probabilities and taking a little bit of a probabilistic mindset into swimming. That there's that old, the old saying, if you got a lane, you got a chance. Yes, like lane 1, lane 8, of course you have a chance. It has happened before. Maybe you don't have as high of a chance as lane 4 did, who, maybe set the world record in semifinals or something, but you have a chance, and you have to understand that. In order to give yourself the best chance of succeeding, you have to execute your plan. And there's plenty of days in practice where Dave and our coaches are like, hey, listen, we're either going to turn the clocks off, or, we're not worrying, we'll give you your time, but success today is not based off of a time. It's how you moved. It's making sure that, we're going to step up, do 100 free off the blocks. And I want you to hit every stroke the way you wanted to hit it. I want you to hit the wall the way you want to hit it, and, hit your no breath cycle, where in the pool, and make sure that all of those factors are there, so that, again, when we are in a place physiologically to go a best time at the end of the season, that's just automatic in your head, right? So at 85 meters, I knew that it was about time to go to straight arm, so I had to get some good air, take a good deep breath, and have a nice good body line, go straight arm, and do the best that I can, because that's the only thing that I can control in that particular moment. My muscles were screaming at me, so I had to start using some different muscles that were a little more fresh, and it ended up working out.
Yeah, in a big way. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. I like that sort of the statistical approach. It's like, yeah, you got a chance. And that's sort of the glass is half full too. I love it.
Yeah.
Very positive.
What are the main couple of traits that you think champions share?
Yeah, you've been around a lot of champions besides being a champion yourself.
Number one, we are all so competitive. Really, really, really competitive. It can get pretty intense in some card games, in some video games, even in these days, even hey, download this new app. It's the most recent one it's called Blockadoku. It's like Tetris, but also Sudoku. And at training camp, we were all playing it. And I think currently Andrew Seliskar has the highest score, but all of us are we get really excited when we're coming close to it or something. So definitely a level of competitiveness. But also, there has to be a level of resilience too. Like I said before too, you do this long enough, you're gonna fail. Something that you don't want to happen is going to happen. And that's okay. You only really fail if you don't learn from it, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't figure out a way to, try to make sure that doesn't happen again next time. And that's really, I think, one of the most important parts of this thing, because you have to get up after you get punched. If you don't, then you're going to quit, basically. You're not going to make it to the end of the season.
Now we do something that's just for fun. It's called our sprinter round.
Take your mark.
So, cat or dog?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask this one.
Yeah.
All right, cat. But I don't believe I don't believe that you have to be a cat or dog person. One day I want both.
All right.
Red or blue?
Blue.
Of course. Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Ooh, dark chocolate.
Kickboard or no kickboard?
Oh, kickboard. I need it.
Thank you. Mountains or beach?
Oh, beach.
And football or baseball?
Football.
iPhone or Android?
I'm an iPhone guy.
Coffee or tea?
I'm drinking coffee, so I'm going with coffee.
Okay. Night owl or a morning person?
Morning person.
A morning person.
You had to think hard about that one.
I do. It's kind of been trained into me, right? Like it is funny, just like every swimmer gets 2 weeks off, a week off or whatever. And like once my body totally like gets back to, living with itself without really intense training, I am one of those guys who wakes up pretty early and I'm kind of hopping out of bed pretty quick.
Cool. All right. This is the last one. We think it's a little sexist, but we asked the women a different question. So boxers or briefs?
Oh, actually, I mean, boxer briefs. Like,
Okay, boxer briefs.
sorry.
That's the best
It's
answer
true,
we've
it's
had.
true.
That is. And I think that's what Jim wears too. That's probably too much information. Okay, 10.
Yeah, especially because that's my brother. Maria's married to my brother.
That's funny.
Okay.
Okay, on these next 10, Nathan, we're looking for super short answers. Just whatever comes to the top of your head. Favorite color?
Oh, blue.
Favorite pizza topping?
Mushrooms.
Favorite vegetable?
Ooh, gosh. Kale? Yes.
Ooh, good one.
That's a good answer.
Favorite swim complex you swim in the U.S.?
Oh. Is this a competition?
No.
Because if it's not a competition, then I'm gonna go with the ACSC up in Marin County.
Nice. All right, something on your pre-race playlist.
Oh, I'm not always a music guy. I like to kind of, especially at something like Olympic trials, like that is, or the ISL recently, like the excitement of the crowd and the electricity in the air it's palpable. And, I feel like I would kind of miss out on that if I was, deep in thought with the headset on.
What's your shoe size?
Either 14 or 15, depending on the brand.
Okay, any siblings?
I do, yes. Brother and sister, both older.
Okay. Favorite Star Wars character?
Oh. Just Obi-Wan. Even after The Mandalorian. I like Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a great answer for you. Can you cook?
I'm getting better. Yes. So I'd say I can follow directions. Let's say that.
Okay, last one. What word comes to mind most when you first dive in the water?
Oh. That depends on the temperature. Because it can be the most relaxing, most soothing, best thing ever, as it has been, or it can be more of a 4-letter word that I'm not very happy about.
Okay, Obi-Wan wouldn't say that.
I love it. Well, Nathan, we so appreciate your time. We've kept you under 40 minutes, which is great. And we really wish you just all the best with, we'll be cheering for you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you guys. See ya.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.
Takeaways. We've heard from you that your favorite section of our podcast is the takeaways. Thank you so much for that feedback. But before we get to the takeaways today, we wanted to ask you if you would please give us a 5-star review. That way, more people will be able to find our podcast. Also, if you could subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, you'll never miss a podcast episode if you subscribe. And please share our podcast with your friends. And now, the takeaways.
So, Maria, what an awesome interview, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Nathan is an amazing man. Just so fun to talk to.
Yes, and one of the things that I really like that we do is we usually do this segment of the takeaways, which we do hear from our listeners is one of their favorite parts of our show. So that's really flattering. Yeah. So it's nice.
It is nice.
But we do it kind of the next day. So we're actually doing these takeaways the next day, which gives us time to digest, and really we listen to the interview again so we can bring you some real nuggets. And again, there was so much here. I think we came up with 8 things, and then we vote together and we select. So
we winnow them down.
Yes, we do a draft.
We're bringing you the best.
So we each have 2. And Maria, why don't you start with your kind of first overarching one that grabbed you?
Okay, so I thought Nathan was incredibly reflective. He even said that one of the gifts of cancer is that he'd been more retrospective. And one of the things that I thought made him was a particularly wise thing is this idea of having a new challenge for after the current challenge is over. So we've learned that champions have to have focus, and you have to be completely focused and heading towards one clear thing and visualizing it. And that is so important. But what happens sometimes when it's over is we have this, terrible kind of letdown. We have a few days of elation, and then it's like, well, what's next? And I think a true champion like Nathan realizes that, everything is going to change. So even though he's completely focused on the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and training and preparing for that, he also has this other thing that's out there, the swim school, so that when the Olympics is over, or when his swim career is over, he knows there's something out there that's going to be fun and exciting for him to look forward to. So I think that would be my first champion's takeaway is when you're shooting for some important goal, also know that there's got to be something beyond that, and plan for future happiness by having a new challenge for after this one, the one you're working toward, is over.
Yes, I think that is so valuable, both in athletics for our swimmers, and we've seen many Olympic athletes. They win Olympic gold, and then they come back and they fall into, a terrible depression, or, some kind of a mental illness, or just they don't thrive. And, it's not just athletes. I can think of, we talk about Survivor on the show a lot, which, there was a Survivor winner. They win $1 million. They're on top of the world, come back and get depressed. And so I think it's such a great tool in anything. And I'm going to allude this example. You are getting ready to build a house, and I recently built a house, which we've since sold, but it was so many people warned us during the building process, and it was a good long 3-year process of building that house, that be careful now when it's done, you're going to get post-house building depression,
wow.
So, and it is because every single day you're consumed with, I'm going to pick the counters and the floors and the windows and the lights and the fixtures, etc. So I think it's the same thing when you're building an athletic career. You're really focused when you're building a career, like that. They're just, I love that he knows that he's going to need another challenge on the horizon, and that he's getting it.
He even used the term, and I loved it, lean on. And I think that's a good way to think about it, because you're going to have something after the huge air of elation of whatever it is that you've accomplished. that goes away, goes out like a balloon emptying, you're going to have to need something else to lean on. So make sure that's there and ready for you.
Yes, yes. So my first takeaway, and I think it was just, for me, it's huge. And he kind of just, he didn't brush over it, but I went in once he mentioned this, and I did the background on the research on marginal improvements. And marginal improvements, he alluded, oh yeah, this happened in 2012 Olympic team with the British cycling team. So that was all he mentioned as far as the reference to how he uses, incremental improvements. You don't have to decide in one practice that you're going to change your flip turn and your start and your stroke and your underwaters, like just 1% a day. So the actual background and story on this is that in 2003, the British Cycling Association had just, as described in this article, was that they had mediocre performances from the British cycling team for 100 years, just nothing. And they hired a guy named Dave Brailsford, and he came in and he implemented this 1% improvement plan, just incremental improvements. And so within the first 5 years that he took over at the 2008, so 5 years after at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, they won 60% of the gold medals that were available in cycling. And then I think this is what Nathan probably heard about. In 2012 at the London Olympics, they even raised the bar and set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. And then they continued that into road cycling, where the next year, Chris Froome won the Tour de France and went on to win it in 2015, 2016, 2017. So during that 10-year span from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 world championships, 66 Olympics or Paralympic golds, and 5 Tour de France's. So this is the most successful run in cycling history of the world. And I know, so that got Nathan's attention, and obviously he's implemented this 1%, and it's actually referenced in the book Atomic Habits. So if
can you give us an example, Kelly, in your life?
In my life, I think it's just constantly, I think an easy one to reference is being in good physical condition. We're older ladies, and I think it's knowing that I'm probably decreasing in my flexibility, mobility, endurance by, I don't know, maybe 0.5% a year, because you're just aging and you just can't do the things that you used to do. But I think by doing just almost a 1% or just incremental changes of, my muscles are used to swimming a lot. I do have some shoulder impingements and some pain. And so I don't swim as much, but I might add, I do this beautiful little 7-minute workout that I love on YouTube. And so I think it's just making, for me, it's a physical effort to stay in physical condition. And that's just adding a little bit of something different, because my body, I've learned, has gotten used to I can't just repetitively go swim 10 100s on 120. Even though that's a good workout, I need to add something different. So I've added yoga, I've added Tai Chi and Qigong and little hand weights and stretching. And then I'm trying this new thing called the Slow Jogging Association, which I love. It's if you Google Slow Jogging Association, it's actually kind of running, but you're more able to talk and you're able to not get your heart rate too high. And so I feel like if you don't have to go out and run a marathon every weekend, but it's that 1% a day of saying, I'm going to do something that's going to keep my body in shape or get my body in shape. I think that's what I was going to refer to in the Atomic Habits when you asked me that question. Is there's a beautiful graph that shows if you just keep everything the same, you can imagine the graph line. So you've got the line going straight up and then the line going, the baseline across the bottom and starting at the intersecting point 0. If you do nothing or do everything the same, you're just going to go right across the bottom. You're just going to skim that bottom rung of the baseline bar. If you do 1% improvement, that line just ekes up and ekes up and ekes up. And after 1 year, you have, I think, at least in this graph, there's like a 37% improvement, which is significant. I mean, the difference in where you end up at baseline if you do no improvements or stay the same, and where you end up if you just do 1%, I think is a really powerful thing. And Nathan obviously grasped this, and it's really worked for him.
Yeah.
How about you, Maria? Can you think of something that you're doing incremental improvements on?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to apply that to work, how I can look at something a little bit differently and try one little new thing, a week or every 2 weeks to see if my relationships or my meetings don't run better, or my maybe increase in sales. We've actually been doing that. We've tried some little things, month by month to see if we can improve things. So I think it's a great rule. I think the point is you don't have to throw everything out and start all over or do something really big. You can just try one little thing or concentrate on one little thing at a time and see some improvement over the long haul if you keep adding those 1% together. So I love that.
Yes, me too. Very, very good piece of advice. How about your second one?
Okay, the second one was the focus towards the end. As I said, Nathan's been very reflective, and one of his reflections is about community. He talked a lot about the people who have helped him, and his sense of being standing on the shoulders of the coaches and his parents and everybody who's ever helped him to become the person he is, to become the winner, the incredible champion that he is. And so I guess the mindset is to reflect on your community. And I said, oh, so, you should be humble. And he said, yeah, but more than that, you should also be the shoulders. And I just love that term. I want to be the shoulders for others. Right. How can I support the people in my life? So how can I be the shoulders for them? In what ways can I let other people stand on my shoulders? What can I teach them? How can I help them? I thought that was a really beautiful and truly mark of a champion.
Yes, that was a great one. Just exactly. And he's doing that. He's obviously, whenever we do one of these shows, we do a theme of, what is the theme of this? And he opened his interview by talking about, I think he talked about Jason and Dara and Natalie and Michael. Yeah. And all the people those are just a few of the people that he looked up to. And he said he wants to be even in the front of that before we got into this community. So I think, he's doing that in a lot of ways with his swim school and with, his work that he's done with the USA Swimming Foundation, and just, obviously his cancer work, that he's putting himself out there and being an example to people with cancer.
He's being the shoulders for people.
He is being the shoulders, and boy, doesn't he have a nice pair of shoulders to stand on. I'm not being sexist there. I'm just saying he does have some serious shoulders. Yeah. Yes, so he can carry the weight.
Okay, Kelly, what's your final one?
My final one is another one that was so powerful to me, is when I ask him, about his mindset, I started and I said first in general, but then I really wanted to know when he's head down, and if you're, anything you do in life, the last 20% of it is the hardest part. It's like 80 meters into 100 meter free is definitely the hardest part. And so when he won gold, I said, what was your mindset during that last 20 meters? Because he literally went from being behind to winning the gold. And he said, execution is the only thing. And I loved that. I loved that he was really it kind of takes the emotion out of things. It breaks it down into, hey, 100-meter free is made up of, I don't know how many strokes. If, you're taking 30 strokes down and 30 strokes back, it's made of 60 strokes. But, it's kind of the 1% rule, or the minimal marginal gains of, he broke it down into the last 10 meters, and he was talking about execution. He straightened his arm, so he's using a little bit different muscle there. And then he's just putting in that execution of what he should be doing to get to the gold. So I really liked that. And then he went a little further with that and tied that into the probabilities. And he said, if you have a lane, you have a chance. So those two were in the same paragraph, a little unrelated, but I really liked the execution and the probabilities of, hey, if you have a lane, you have a chance. And he even tied that a little bit into cancer. If if I have a 80 or 90% chance of survival rate, then, that's the probability that I'm going to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really excellent. I like the execute too. It reminded me that, that's the way he was thinking. He didn't give up his brain during that part. He's like, okay, what's next? I'm going to execute what I've been practicing.
Right. There was no self-talk in there about, oh, I'm exhausted, my body's hurting, this guy's really good, or I'm tired. It was, I need to straighten out my arms and keep my head down. I'm going to take a big breath of air. And, so it was executing things, which is another way of saying he's focusing on the process versus focusing on the emotions or the pain. So that was huge for me. And like I said, Maria and I had many of these, many things. I think he covered a wide range with really some great wisdom, and there was many more that we could get out of it. I'm tempted to go there, but I'm not. So
people have other things to do, I guess.
Yes.
All right, Kelly. Well, it was a great interview, and some great takeaways. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes. Thanks for being on this journey with me, Maria. I love you.
I love you too, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This week's quote of the week is from Nathan Adrian. I definitely believe in those marginal improvements and maintaining a high level of integrity in everything that you do, instead of trying to make one drastic jump from one to the next. You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast, designed to make you feel inspired, motivated, and educated. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Also visit championsmojo.com to learn more.